We're still looking at percentage. But this time, what we want to do is find the percentage. So if we're asked what percent of a number, and let's say this time 20, is 15. We don't know the percentage this time, so we're not moving the decimal point to begin our operation. What we are going to do, though, is say, okay, we want to know what percent, so we're going to put an X, times, in this case 20, is, we're going to replace with an equal sign, 15. And what we find out we have is an equation, one where we have 20 times some number is equal to 15. Well, remember from our discussion on equation solving, that what we want to do is eliminate the 20, which is multiplied by times the X by dividing. So we must divide both sides of the equation by 20. The 20s divide out, and X then is equal to 15 over 20. And that can be reduced. We can divide by 5. And that'll give us 3/4. Now we have to change 3/4 to a decimal, because remember we were working with decimals, and then we went from percent to decimal, so now we have to go from decimal back to percent. So 3/4 means that we'll put the 3 under the division box and the 4 outside. And then we need 2 decimal places, so we're going to add decimal point and 2 zeros. Now, on the division, the decimal point goes up in our answer, so we're going to divide 4 into 30, and 4 goes into 37 times, and 4 times 7 is 28. Subtract, we have 2 left over. We bring down a 0. Now 4 into 20 goes 5 times. So we've got our decimal, 0.75. So X as a decimal is equal to 0.75. And then to change it to a percent, since we moved it to the left to make it a decimal, we move it to the right to make it a percent. So then this is equal to 75%. Let's look at one more example. This time we're asking what percent, putting it in words, of 80 is 35. Okay, let's translate that into an equation. We know that's a times sign, and that's 80. And then what percent then is the X. The is the equal sign, and 35 is the answer. All right, so then 80 is multiplied times X, so that means we're going to divide both sides by 80. And the 80s divide out, and then X is going to equal 35 over 80. Now we can divide by 5 to simplify this down a little bit. So 35 divided by 5 is 7. And 80 divided by 5 is 16. Now we have to change 7/16 to a decimal. So the 7 will go under the division box, and the 16 outside. And remember, we need 2 decimal places, so we're going to add a decimal point and 2 zeros. Decimal point and 2 zeros. Now, let's do our division. We'll take the decimal point straight up. So we'll say 16 goes into 70. How many times? Well, let's see. 5 is too much. So let's take 4. And 4 times 6 is 24. 4 plus the 2 is 64. Subtract, and we have 6 left over. Then we take 16 into 60. Let's say 3 times. 3 times 6 is 18. 3 and 1 is 4. So we subtract there, and we'll get 8 from 10 is 2, and 4 from 5 is 1. So So we have 12. So that's far enough. So let's put our remainder over 16. And 12 16ths can be reduced by dividing by 4. 4 goes into 12 3 times, and 4 goes into 16 4 times. So our answer is 43 and 3/4, 0.34 and 3/4. Now, we said that we have to move our decimal point 2 places to the right to change this to a percent. So then as a percent, this will be 43 and 3/4%. Now this one was a little more tricky because it didn't divide out evenly like in our first example, and we can't just throw away our remainder. So when we divide it, we got 12 left over, so we put the 12 over our divisor 16, and then 12 and 16 can be divided by 4, so we divide both of these by 4, and 4 goes into 12 3 times, and 4 goes into 16 4 times, so then 12 16ths is equal to 3/4. And we said x then is 0.43 and 3/4. Now we have to change it to a percent, and we do that by moving the decimal point 2 places to the right, 1 2. So our answer is 43 and 3/4%.